Are you using control or effectiveness to learn languages? So, in the video that we had on Monday, we touched on the role of anxiety in language learning. And one of the things that we talked about was the idea of wanting to control the material instead of working with it and making it work to our advantage. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the topic of control versus effectiveness, which is a concept that was originally developed by a British academic named Stella Cottrell, who focused on helping students learn better. She called it being virtuous versus being effective. And I'm just going to take that and massage it a little bit so that it fits our context a little better. So, what's the difference between the two? Control is all about basing your language learning on the things that you feel you might be able to control, like exercises and how well you do on exams. It's about focusing on grammar. It's about focusing on what's in the textbook and memorizing what's in the textbook rather than doing and using that language in real life. And in a lot of students, it manifests itself as like dominating conversations rather than letting the conversation flow amongst or between everybody who's in the room. It also means judging your ability based on the outcomes of things like exams and exercises and quizzes rather than your ability to communicate. Now, let's compare that to what it means to be an effective language learner. Effectiveness is all about how well you use the language and how you make it work for you. I mean, the exercises, the tests, the quizzes, they're a good start, but they shouldn't be your end goal. Your end goal should be focusing on communication and connection. You're learning this language because you want to be able to use it in other situations with other people. And that means that when you do that, you are getting instant feedback on those conversations based on what you're actually able to do with the language, which means that you're judging your ability based on what you're getting from other people, not what you're getting from one point in time from an exam or a test or things like that. So if you find yourself focusing more on control than actually being effective when you're using your language and communicating, here are some things that you can try. First of all, when you're evaluating your progress, focus on the areas of growth and think about the things that you can do now that you couldn't do before last year at the start of the class before you started studying the language. Sure, there are going to be a lot of things that maybe you can't do yet, but those are things that you're going to master soon. No one is born knowing a language 100%. It's normal for it to take some time. Secondly, focus on connection with other people, not on being correct 100% of the time or obsessing about your grammar. Really, in everyday communication, people are not thinking about your grammar and your vocabulary as much as you believe they might be. It's absolutely true. They're so worried about looking like a fool themselves, they're not focused on you. And finally, as we talked about last week, look for as many ways to practice the language as possible, even if it's just small things like your vocabulary flashcards or doing some online exercises. A little every day goes a long way. That way, if you do find that you're getting anxious about your language learning, you can look back on everything you've done in the last week, the last 2 weeks, the last month, and say, hey, you know what? I'm working on it. So, here are some things that you shouldn't do. And I bring them up because they're kind of toxic to language learning in various ways. First of all, don't focus on studying the language more than you focus on using the language. Remember, language is a tool to create connection amongst people, and you're creating it when you're using your language as you're learning it. You don't create connection with paper or textbooks or exercises on the internet, and that's a really important distinction. Secondly, don't believe that you have to do it all yourself. The people in your class, your coworkers, your friends on the internet, everyone can potentially help you practice, provide advice to you, and like I said before, create connection through the language. And finally, be careful if you find yourself seeking validation from your instructor all the time. Yes, We teachers and instructors are willing to help you and tell you that you're doing a good job, but really the validation that's going to make you feel better is the validation that you get from knowing that you're able to do things in your target language that you couldn't do before, and knowing that, hey, this is the one thing that I've done successfully. And again, as I've mentioned in past videos, be really careful about criticizing yourself too much. Let's face it, if you're doing something that makes you feel bad about doing something all the time, there's going to be a point where you don't want to do it. And as always, if you have any questions or any comments, don't hesitate to get in touch. I can be reached via email at detour2learning@gmail.com or via Instagram at the handle @yourlangteacher. Thanks very much, and talk to you soon.